Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Buffalo Sabres by a final score of 5-2 at Madison Square Garden. And I say for me, this was the first time that truly I was rooting against the Rangers. Um, and I don't really see that changing the rest of the way, other than, them playing some spoiler against certain rivals. That I can make an exception for. But, you know, we spoke last episode about Igor Shesterkin getting hurt. What we didn't know is that Adam Fox sustained an injury as well, a lower body injury, and it explains now. Because remember, I talked about it was a little strange how he didn't start the overtime, that it was Gavrikov. Like, we've seen that. Fox doesn't always start the overtime, but it was a little bit curious. And I think Fox had gotten hurt at the end of regulation, possibly on his last shift. And he was placed on long-term injured reserve, meaning he's at least 10 days or 10 days, and 24 days. So he's basically out, and he's going to be out until through the Olympics at this point. He can technically come back, I think, at the end of January, but at that point, there's only a couple more games, and honestly, who knows? It could be even worse than that. And Igor was placed on just regular IR. So the only thing that tells me is that they consider the Fox injury more serious than the Shesterkin injury. It doesn't necessarily mean that Shesterkin isn't going to be out for a while himself, right? Like, I personally wouldn't think that he will just be back once, with IR, you're at least 10 days. I would suspect it'd be out longer than that based on the way the injury looked. All this to say, look, JT Miller did return in this game. Didn't look great, but, give him a pass because he's been out, but it's just been a tough year for him as far as just the injuries and just ineffectiveness at times. But, look, I think that this Ranger team, the results are going to be what the results are going to be. Look, they play a style where they're going to win some games. Like, they're typically in games. They don't get destroyed often. Like, even this, the score ends up being 5-2. The Rangers were very, very close to potentially tying this game. Rangers dominated the third period, but were unable to get the tying goal. And we'll talk about sort of the key moments in this game. But yeah, I mean, look, you're taking a hit. As good as Jonathan Quick has been, and as much as, like, I remember last year around this time, actually, Igor, I think, got hurt, and Quick, actually played all right. When he was asked, to play a little bit more of a starter's bulk. But, Shesterkin, as much as amazing as Jonathan Quick is, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. As much as he's been a very, very good backup this season, it's going to hurt the Rangers, right? Any way you look at it. And then Adam Fox being out again, the Rangers were able to, I don't even know if I want to say tread water. They were all right. I mean, they were okay when Fox was out, but now that he's out again, and so now it's, Braden Schneider going back to that top pair with Gavrikov, and Scott Morrow being back in the lineup. It is, the power play takes a major hit for sure. I mean, as much as, Gavrikov's done a nice job offensively, more than you'd expect, that's not ideal. So, yeah, I think that especially, when the Rangers trade Panarin, and I know by then, Shesterkin and or Fox may be back, I wouldn't rush him at all. There's just no need to. Again, with Panarin likely to be dealt by the deadline, I'd be stunned if he isn't. I mean, the only way would be if he really just exercises that no move clause to the point where he doesn't want to leave. But it's like, I think for the right place, I think he certainly would. You think that he'd want to try to win a cup this season. Certainly not going to happen with the Rangers. So, yeah, like, get ready for a lot of losses. I mean, effort is typically good. Not by the whole team always, but, it's not for lack of effort. Again, it's one of the least talented teams in the league, and this is what you get. So, again, just huge news with what we found out as far as, Shesterkin and Fox goes. Fox being the big surprise, more than anything. You knew Igor was going to be out, but for Fox as well, to me, that if there was any hope that this team could maybe just be in the mix, to me, like, that ended it right there. Like, this felt like for sure the beginning of just And look, I never really, for a long time now, I hadn't felt like they'd make it, but I was still, kind of holding on, hoping that maybe they could play some relevant hockey down the stretch. And you just come to grips with the realization it's not going to happen, especially in a very deep Eastern Conference. It's just, there is a very real chance the Rangers, as far as the East goes, they could end up in last in the Eastern Conference. It's not a crazy statement to say at all. Um, and so, I think for me as well, losing a big reason why I want it, it's not even so much, I mean, part of it, of course, is for draft lottery purposes, but it's to try to ensure that the brain trust, Chris Drury and company knows that it needs to be a sell. Like, you hear Kiefer Sherwood from Vancouver that they're interested in him. It's like, just if you are, just wait till the offseason. Don't be trading away premium assets for an unrestricted free agent, even if, like, let's say, okay, there's like you agreed to an extension, just wait. It's not worth it. Simply, I would be very upset if they make moves like that. I'd be upset. Now, if you want to make moves for players that are already going to be under contract for future seasons and they're younger than Sherwood and you want to give up premium assets, oh, okay, we can talk. But yeah, to do that for a 30-year-old unrestricted free agent is just would be absolutely wrong. And so for me, I want losses to further show, hey, don't even think about it. It's just stupid, quite frankly. Um, so other roster moves. Um, Defense is simple. Like they call up Scott Morrow, as you'd expect. And he was like in this game, he was fine. Like he was all right, all things considered. He was on the bottom pair of Carson Soucy, which is an interesting change. Like they went with Robertson Borgen. Which again, it's the whole Robertson scratch the last game was weird. Vakanainen was back on the bench as he should have been. Again, those had to be reasons beyond trying to put your best team out there. Just had to be. So yeah, like Robertson played a good amount more than Carson Soucy, like for sure. He was on the second pair of Borgen, and I don't mind it. Like, look, if that's how you want to line it up and you have Soucy Morrow, fine with that, you know. And quite honestly, Carson Soucy's likely to be traded. I would say it kind of, if somehow it is Vakanainen, which could be, like at least, you're getting Roberts. Like I think it does line things up a little bit better. Where let's say for a large stretch it is Gavrikov, Schneider, Robertson, Borgen, and then Vakanainen and Morrow. As bad as that pair might be, or whoever it may be, right? Like insert whoever you want for the Hartford player. Don't really mind that way of thinking. By the way, backup goalie now will be Spencer Martin. Don't be surprised if maybe we do see him, like, if Igor is out, let's say until the break. Spencer Martin presumably may get a couple of games. Not much, and I think that if somehow Shesterkin were to be back in a week or two, then it might just be Jonathan Quick. So we'll see. But yeah, they went with the veteran over Dylan Garand, which makes sense. Garand, let him play in Hartford. Like, I don't think there's much of a future there with Garand, but let it be Spencer Martin, who's a veteran. Just makes more sense for him to be the backup. As far as the forwards go, they send down Brett Berard. It's been it's very upsetting with Brett Berard. I thought that there was a future there. I don't know that there is. Like, I don't think that, the Sullivan, and coaching staff is a big fan of Brett Berard. Like, not for any, like, reasons other than just his play, but he hasn't been great. And all that said, I would rather him be on the team than some other veterans. No offense to Anton Bleed, who probably has been just as effective as Berard. Bleed doesn't play much, but I probably would rather see the Berards and the Othmans, name whoever younger, Hamelosh. I probably would, but they are going with veterans in certain spots. For example, Bleed on the fourth line with Carrick and Rempe, but Justin Dowling was a healthy scratch. I don't disagree with that. He doesn't belong anywhere near the lineup, so they went with Johnny Brodzinski at center. First time we've really seen him at center this season that I can recall, and he was on a third line centering Perreault and Radish. But the line was fine, for what it was. I thought Perreault was decent. Look, he's not making a huge impact, but I thought, noticed him a little bit in a more positive way in this game. So yeah, again, it's not a very good third line, but that's what it was. And so it leaves your top six with Panarin, Zibanejad, Cooley on one line, and Miller, Trocheck, Lafreniere on another. I don't agree with the Miller playing with Trocheck thing. The problem is the Rangers are so thin on the wing, but I don't know, especially with Laba out. I mean, I don't hate the idea of lining up Zibanejad, Trocheck, and Miller as centers. But again, it does lead. It makes the top six really, really bad on paper. But I don't know. I don't see it like the Miller Trocheck thing. They've stuck with Panarin's Zibanejad for a while. They did connect on a goal. Will Cooley, yeah, there's a lot of individual stuff to discuss. Lafreniere is going to be a big talking point, which we'll get to later. But Will Cooley, I don't. Oh, actually, no. Will Cooley, I will talk about in the flow of things too. So let's just get there. The one thing I will say is the one player, and he made a mistake tonight, but he also scored. Like the one player who shows consistent effort in the top six to me is Zibanejad. Like as bad as last season was for most of it, more so in the beginning, he kind of turned things around a little bit towards the end. Like, hey, he's been one of the guys from the forward group that you kind of need to depend upon. That and again, I know the bar has been kind of set a little bit lower with him, but I give him credit for the most part, despite him not being the same player he was a few years ago, danger wise. In net for the Sabres was Colton Ellis, who actually played pretty well. He hadn't been in there since December 9th. I believe he was coming back from injury. And he hadn't really even done that well in his 8 games this season. Like he made his NHL debut this year. So yeah, like as far as goalie, like really, even though Jonathan Quick was in net, Rangers in some ways to me kind of had the goalie edge where the Rangers don't have many advantages. That one might have been, but Colton Ellis really, I only thought maybe he made one mistake. And it was that second goal scored by Trocheck. Other than that, I thought he was actually pretty damn good. But Buffalo, look, they win this game and they're 12-1 in the last 13 games. They are really on a heater. We'll see that last they are going to be in that playoff discussion. I think maybe they break that drought, but there's a lot of Eastern teams to contend with. And it's another reason why the Rangers just aren't going to come close to making the playoffs. But, Rangers, they're horrible at home, as we know. I don't want to make this like a home conversation, but this is now 10 straight games, which they have not won in regulation at home. They've only won 2 games all year in regulation at home, but they dropped to 5-11-4. And another thing, they rarely score first period home goals. And yet again here, Buffalo jumps out to the lead. At 4:07, it's Josh Doan scoring his 14th goal, assisted by Samuelsson and Zucker. And this was a play where Zibanejad does a pretty poor job of getting this out of the zone. He kind of puts it up the middle. But a shot by Samuelsson breaks the stick of Will Cooley. Things get scrambly. Quick gets a little too aggressive. That's the thing with Quick is sometimes positionally, Igor's a little more sound. Quick gets, and it can cause for some acrobatic saves, but simple things kind of, and goals end up looking easy that aren't. I didn't think this was a great goal by Quick, but, there were other issues here. Again, starting with Zibanejad, then Will Cooley, where, again, a little bit of bad luck where the stick breaks, but, again, he didn't do a great defensive job. Will Cooley belongs nowhere near the role he has. Look, Will Cooley is one of the few bright spots prospect-wise for the New York Rangers because they're so bad at it that Will Cooley, look, he's a legitimate NHL player, but he's not a top 6 player. And honestly, he has a pretty significant special teams role, especially on the penalty kill. I don't love him on this penalty kill either. So Will Cooley, there's certain things he's good at. He's got the size. There is a bit of goal scoring ability there, but he doesn't have that much skill. We know this. It's unfortunate. I don't mean to rag on him, but I feel like it just speaks to an overall problem with this roster. He has such a big role in this team. And for a good NHL roster, he would be a third liner and really nothing more than that. Anyway, what do the Sabres at that point? And I thought after that, Rangers, they played a good in that first period. I think Buffalo had the better chances. Rangers outshot Buffalo 7-4 in the first. The first periods out of all of them are always the most low event in Ranger games. The first period, where they seem to be the most defensively sound, despite games we can think about this year where they got off to slow starts. I think the first period, are, and maybe that's the case around the NHL, just very low shot totals of these first periods, specifically in Ranger games. But yeah, Sabres get that 1-0 lead. Again, I thought the Rangers got a little bit better as the first period went along. Let's go to the second period, where it was a struggle for the Rangers. This was probably their worst period. And at 6:58, Alex Tuch scores his 14th goal of the season, assisted by Byram and Norris. And Trocheck and Norris get tangled up. And look, to me, there was no, I mean, Norris didn't do anything illegal in my book. But Trocheck ends up getting kind of caught up and he ends up kind of flinging the stick away from Norris, but the play is already way up ice. So it's in some ways kind of a man advantage a little bit for the Sabres. I wouldn't say it necessarily factored into the goal, the man advantage part of it, but the simple point is Buffalo was already up ice. And some pretty skilled work by Bowen Byram to kind of get around Panarin. And Alex Tuch is just one of the best. I mean, he's a really good player. And, he is one of the top free agents at this point going into next season. Like him and Panarin at this point, name-wise and production-wise, offensively, are two of the best, ones available. So that makes each other thing. But to make matters worse, Vincent Trocheck gets an unsportsmanlike penalty, or actually it's called abuse of officials at 6:58. And look, Trocheck does get involved later on in a positive way. But I don't know. I don't like that from Vincent Trocheck. Channel that into your opponents. I've seen a lot of complaining by Trocheck this year, and I don't know. Maybe he was always that way, but Vincent Trocheck that I remember, when he was on the Panthers, Hurricanes in his early Ranger career, he would get under the opponent's skin. And now I feel like all that aggression is just going towards complaining, and it's very much a Ranger thing, the complaining. I don't like it. So hey, like that was a bad job by Vincent Trocheck there. Look, you like the fire, but like none of it's gonna, have you taking a penalty. Rangers do kill that one off. And then soon thereafter, it's Zibanejad scoring his 16th goal of the season, assisted by Panarin, to make it 2-1. A turnover by Buffalo ends up on the stick of Panarin, who's the last guy you really want if you're Buffalo to have the puck. He makes a nice cross-ice pass to Mika, who one times it past Ellis to cut it to 2-1. And at that time, it was Zibanejad. And really, it's credit to Zibanejad, but it's also kind of a joke for the Rangers. He had accounted for 8 straight goals, either goal or assist for the Rangers. He actually owns that record with 10 straight done in 18-19, and he tied Rod Gilbert for second with 8. That streak would end on the second goal, but it's a situation where obviously the top 6 for my money has been very underwhelming this year, but also now, and part of it too, you got to factor, I guess, in like the Noah Laba injury recently, I guess, namely, but also like when you have a JT Miller, there's a domino effect to injuries, right? But Rangers are really not getting any production at all offensively out of the bottom 6, which, isn't good either. And again, it kind of speaks to, again, some of these stats that you're seeing lately. Although Zibanejad has just been really good, too. But it makes it 2-1 right there. And then at 11:53, Matthew Robertson holds Zach Benson. So Matthew Robertson, I feel like he's been taking a decent amount of penalties lately, it feels like. I like his overall game, and he's been one of the absolute biggest surprises this year in a positive way. But I feel like he has taken some penalties, and it's led to goals against. And here, Jason Zucker scores his 10th goal of the season from Dahlin and Thompson at 12:34, where I want to say there was a bad clearing. I think it was actually Cooley, who originally behind the net had full control and eventually lost possession of the puck. Right? It was an easy, like, there was no one near him. But again, Cooley doesn't really have like great hand-eye puck skills. And eventually it's a shot by Dahlin from the point that is stopped by Quick, goes off of Zucker and behind Quick. So a bit of bad luck there, and it leads to the Sabres taking a 3-1 lead. Then in 18:28, the Rangers get their first power play of the game, drawn by Panarin. I feel like Panarin's drawn a lot of power plays lately. It was Noah Ostlund that takes the penalty, but the Sabres kill it off going in the third. However, soon after the kill is over, at 51 seconds of the third, Trocheck gets a little bit of redemption, his 11th goal of the season from Miller and Panarin. So Zibanejad not factoring in on this one. Although, actually, Zibanejad was actually on the ice. He was on the ice, technically, if you want to count that. He was on the ice for this one, because it was kind of one of those things where they had a little bit of the same power play crew on, and a little bit of a line change, I think, going on, maybe more with the defenseman, I think. But yeah, it's one that, you know what, give Trocheck credit for, I think he kind of tricked Ellis by kind of turning his eyes. He kind of looked off the goalie and then shot. So, like, when I first watched, I'm thinking, okay, not a great goal by Ellis, but then when you look at the replay, actually kind of a savvy play by Trocheck. And it makes it 3-2. That was a big goal for the Rangers, and they got rolling after that. The Rangers absolutely dominated this third period. until a certain situation happens. But yeah, like they were getting a lot of good work, really from all four lines. I felt like the Carrick line had good chances. I'd say the Brodzinski line, like they were really. I thought it was a matter of time before the Rangers tied it up, but in Ranger fashion, things totally blow up. But first, and it's what makes it unique. Vincent Trocheck draws a 4-minute power play on a high stick by Peyton Krebs, which is ironic because the two of them were, I think they were going at it earlier at one point. Krebs took a big hit from Braden Schneider earlier in the game. Like Krebs and Trocheck, it was just ironic that that was the situation there. But yeah, 4-minute power play, less than 6 minutes to go. But because Trocheck was cut, here's the ironic thing. He couldn't start the power play. And so they chose Lafreniere, which is what they've done lately, like over Cooley. They could have gone Cooley, but Lafreniere's kind of had that edge. So they go at Lafreniere. And what do you know? Again, down by 1, 4-minute power play. Lafreniere makes a really bad pass in the direction of Gavrikov, intercepted by McLeod. Samuelsson then gets past Lafreniere, and on a bad angle, Samuelsson scores past Quick. A very bad goal by Quick, right? Like, we can't lose sight of that. Jonathan Quick, who wasn't seeing much work in third period, like, going into that, again, I didn't love the first goal, but, like, Quick was okay. Look, like, Quick is what he is. But Lafreniere, it's just crazy that, like, the only reason he was on was because Trocheck, took that high stick and was bleeding. So by rule, Trocheck was waiting to come on the ice for Lafreniere and couldn't. And then it just, and Sullivan was pissed at Lafreniere based on the post-game presser, where you try to be a little politically correct and not these days, right? You don't see like the Tortorella type of stuff like you used to. Sullivan made it pretty clear, like he was not happy with Lafreniere, and you just wonder at some point, when is it going to affect his ice time? I know that the rest of the team is bad, and therefore, and to be fair, actually Lafreniere did pretty well the last 3 games for his standards, but pretty unbelievable the turn of events there, where only the Rangers could make this sort of thing happen. And that was to me, that was the moment of the game right there. So Samuelsson, shorthanded goal, assisted by McLeod. Also want to say another Centennial jersey night. They only have 1 win. I think they might be about 1-5 now in the Centennial jersey. They honored fan favorites before the game. So yeah, like they're not very good in those uniforms. Makes it 4-2. Rangers, the rest of the way, they don't score on that 4-minute power play. And again, for the Lafreniere thing, like it was a matter of A, bad turnover, and then B, like getting back. It's a combination of not great hustle, but also kind of thinking that maybe Gavrikov had it covered. Like the whole thing looked horrible. And again, a horrible angle goal by Jonathan Quick. So Sabres kill that off, but before it's over, actually, let me see. No, never mind. It had ended. Ryan McLeod gets an empty net goal, his ninth goal of the season. I says the Rangers did have 6-on-4 for a while there. They had good offensive zone time, but really nothing else to show for it. And also pretty weak by Panarin getting back on that McLeod goal. Like, again, it's Panarin. You can't be surprised about it, but like, really ideally there, he probably should have been able to beat McLeod. Look, they were going to lose anyway, but there was still a minute and a half left. Makes it 5-2 Sabres. That's your final score. Again, Buffalo 12-1 in the last 13 games. Rangers, their home struggles continue in a very massive way. 5-11-4 overall on the road. It's a rare loss with 2 goals or more, but you're going to see that more. That was a crazy stat. Like, you're going to lose a good amount when you score 2 goals. So yeah, that stat that was once kind of amazing, it's going to normalize in a big way. And the thing that I keep on looking for that is really going to go down is the road record. The road record is still very good at 15-8-2, which is kind of remarkable. That's the one where it's like, that's where I see the change coming. Speaking of the road, next it'll be a Saturday matinee nationally televised game against the Bruins. Now, last time they played the Bruins was also a nationally televised game on Black Friday where the Rangers really pummeled Boston, but that Bruin lineup was decimated. It had no one. It really had no one. The Bruins are a lot more healthy now, but we'll see what happens. Again, the Bruin team is not chock full of skill, right? Like I look at the Sabre team and it's like there's speed, there's youth. Like Boston could be a team the Rangers could have some success against. It wouldn't shock me, but at the same time, Bruins, they're coming off of a win against Calgary at home. Not, obviously, that's, not overly impressive, but they had struggled before that, the Bruins. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe the Bruins look to exact some revenge after getting beaten pretty soundly by the Rangers last time. It may have no effect at all, but we'll see. Again, Saturday afternoon game in Boston for the Rangers. Just a quick little one-game road situation. Then they'll head back home to take on the Seattle Kraken, what will be the return of Kakko and Lindgren. So a little bit interesting there, right? I mean, not as much of the cachet as the Anaheim game, obviously, with like Kreider and True. This one, not nothing either. Players that were Rangers for a while in Kakko and Lindgren. But again, that's a couple games away. Next game at Boston, original 6 matchup against the Bruins. But Rangers, they have now lost 6 of their last 8 overall. The injuries are, really, really piling up, and they lose at home to the Buffalo Sabres. Final score, 5-2.